Kia ora koutou. My name is Adrienne Kinder, literacy coach with Liz Kane Literacy. I am a former teacher at Summerland Primary, where I also had the opportunity to work closely with some teachers in a coaching capacity. That is where I had the pleasure of working with two Year 4 teachers, Kath Robinson and Nicole Brough. Like many teachers, Kath and Nicole had classes of students with wide-ranging abilities, and we discussed how best to serve their needs. Nicole was new to Summerland and Kath had returned from maternity leave, so it was a steep learning curve for them both to adopt new pedagogy such as explicit instruction and using a scope and sequence. Last year, when we co-hosted SBP in Auckland, sharing best practice, I approached Kath and Nicole to present a workshop showing the changes they had made to their classroom planning and teaching and to share their students' success. They taught in single-cell classrooms, but planned together and talked often about what was happening in their classrooms. It is fair to say that they were both very reluctant to present at SBP, but took that risk on, and their presentation was warmly received by the 70-odd teachers that attended their workshop. It is also fair to say the reluctance to record this today is still very high, but I know many more teachers are keen to hear about the changes they've made in their classrooms. Kath and Nicole are at great pains to say that they do not consider themselves experts here, but have simply committed to implementing changes to their practice that are evidence-informed and for high-impact teaching. This year, they teach in joined classrooms, and while they continue to plan together, some of their teaching remains in individual classrooms and some is collaborative. Links to their resources will be shared in the description when we upload this video. Kath and Nicole, welcome. Great to see you today, and thank you for taking the time to share with us. Over to you.
Kia ora everybody, I'm Nicole and this is Kath. So we're both Year 4 teachers and are on a continuous journey to maximising teaching through teaching literacy through a whole class and small group instruction. In the past, we have taught through multiple groupings and instruction and always felt we could reduce the inequity in our classroom more effectively. We then faced a number of problems and wanted an effective way to teach everyone, where everyone gets everything. We are not experts, but have found some really valuable teaching strategies that are helping us reach student achievement.
Okay, so the why, setting the scene. The problems we faced after collating our beginning of year data from the last year's teacher, which included code and PAT results, were so overwhelming. It required so many groups. I think I had potentially 7 reading groups and 5 spelling groups. Needless to say, it was not manageable. And getting through all of the subjects while trying to explicitly teach everyone was proving harder. I was spending hours in the resource room trying to find a text for each group that would suit the term topic, meet their reading ability, as well as trying to find enough copies for everyone. It's easier for my top readers, but the kids needing intervention had limited opportunity to access the same facts and knowledge as their peers. We wanted to be able to boost our intervention group while still reaching everyone else, and it was starting to feel pretty unachievable. We wanted to teach more knowledge to everyone in the class and be smart about how we integrated that knowledge into our literacy. So here is an example of the groups and stages that I was trying to fit into one literacy block every day. There was no way to do justice to any of these kids because it's not humanly possible to see this many groups with meaningful, targeted, and explicit teaching. This is when I reached out to Adrienne, who was quick to show me how to target the intervention group and extend their knowledge while targeting gaps for the whole class, especially in code at first. And then we talked about what a whole class reading approach might look like. This then led to lots of podcasts, videos, readings, and discussions with staff members about how it could look. I'm sure you've all seen planning that looks a little bit like this, slightly ridiculous. And this is just reading. This wasn't code. The organisation that went into trying to have the activities for the kids to do when I was with the group was pretty exhausting.
So Kath and I found that we were facing the same issues, so began working really closely with each other. This led us to thinking deeply about what we wanted our students to know. We wanted their vocabulary knowledge to be extended. For this, we needed a really rich topic that had non-fiction text available to help broaden the children's knowledge and understanding. We are really careful to pick non-fiction text and have found that our students love being able to take facts and figures and language home to share. We also wanted every student to have the same opportunity to read every single day. We agreed we needed to build knowledge for all and drew from Anita Archer's teaching, whereby everyone gets everything. Essentially, it meant for spelling that a small group of students who needed high levels of support became an intervention group. Then any year gaps in year 3 content that were significant throughout the class were targeted, and then whole class was teaching from year 4 list. With reading, we both had an intervention group and we tried to pitch the whole class text around a level 2 and 3.
Before we get into how our week and our day looks, we want to put an emphasis on vocabulary. Building vocabulary understanding is an integral part to our lessons, as our students come to us with varying degrees of vocab knowledge. A stronger vocab is crucial for comprehension when reading and needs to be taught and learned well so that it can be applied when writing. The kids love to be able to use new vocabulary confidently. When selecting text, we ensure the chosen vocabulary is repeated and helps consolidate their understanding. The kids like finding words from previous weeks in the new text, and this is an important part of review. We use engaging ways to do this. For example, we use mini whiteboards, slideshows, cards, written definitions, and even sometimes a Kahoot.
So when selecting vocab, we try to think about words that will be specific to the topic and necessary for their understanding. Also words that will come across in a variety of texts and situations. We want them to be able to use these words in their writing. We've found as we build the kids' knowledge of vocab, we also get to have lots of incidental conversations, which is really great. I know just last week we had a visiting Olympian who had used a quote with the word triumph, which had been part of our vocab learning, and the excitement on all the kids' faces to see that word and understand what it meant was pretty cool. So based on what we learnt from last year and wanting to continue building vocabulary knowledge this year, when we plan, we think about how we can maximize the students' learning and knowledge based around a topic through integration so that every child is able to discuss, read, and write about the topic using the correct vocabulary. When we are looking at our intervention children, we are closely progress monitoring and aiming to bridge gaps in reading and code and trying to front load this knowledge before they come to the intervention group sessions so that they are getting double the teaching.
So this is just an example of what our week looks like. Every day starts the same with our vocabulary review around 5 minutes. Monday is vocabulary heavy as we introduce new words and meanings. Here we are front loading and explicitly teaching the academic or useful vocab chosen as a focus that week. Once we've broken this down, the week's vocab, we might highlight it in the text. Then comes to the introduction to the whole class reading. We follow I do, we do, you do, which we will go into detail a little bit later on and as we unpack our day. Every day we see our intervention group for about 20 minutes. Every day we do whole class code and review, and we've been working on cursive handwriting every day. Literacy is a large part of our day, but the topic learning and vocab focus from the whole class has meant that often the class don't even realize how much time they've spent on it. We generally use 2 texts a week and introduce our second text on either a Wednesday or Thursday, depending on the complexity of the text or how well we've felt the children have grasped those concepts.
So like Kath said, every day starts the same with review. We review vocabulary from the previous weeks so that is just getting stuck in their brain and that long-term memory. Then we explicitly teach new vocab. We then move to whole class reading, and we tend to pitch our chosen text to aim for the majority of our readers being able to unpack these. Students then read in buddies for a total of 8 minutes, and then we go to a morning tea break. After morning tea, we come back and we do whole class handwriting and then move into whole class code.
Based on needs for classes and children, I found that some of my intervention kids were really struggling with vowel sounds. So we built it into part of the whole class review just to make sure that we were capturing any others that may have those same gaps. It also meant for a couple of my kids who aren't up to some of the sounds that the class were covering, they're being exposed to them, and they really enjoy being able to be part of that whole class instruction. Everyone gets everything. In total, literacy is just under 2 hours. However, because the kids are so engaged, they honestly don't even notice. So now we're going to start unpacking what a day might look like. This is a picture of an example of one of the routines we use when checking for understanding as part of our vocab review. This could be me calling out a definition where they write the word and chin it on their whiteboard, or with buddies, they can take turns and write the word. We also sometimes just write a vocab word for review and get them to choral for response. So under vocab and review, we move on to our whole class reading, and we follow the I do, we do, you do. We use different strategies to read as a whole class. However, every strategy we use, we always have a ruler to help follow and track our reading. One strategy we use is the choral reading, where we read together in unison. Another strategy might be to echo read, I do, they do. Here the students listen to me read accurately and with appropriate pace and expression. Then they repeat. They are some of the different routines that we use throughout the week. Then the we do. The teacher rereads the texts but stops, and as a class, we continue the sentence until the next full stop. Then we move into paired reading with the same buddy and always sitting in the same place.
So after a term on the whole class reading, we decided to do a Dibbles screening test on the class. Dibbles is an assessment tool that we have just started using last year, and we are still very much in the learning process with this. This assessment is to help identify students at risk of not progressing at their expected rate. It indicates who needs intervention immediately. From our assessment data, we could see that we had a high level of accuracy, but 50% of our class were below the expected reading rate. Therefore, we had to include fluency work as part of our daily program. We have learnt to ensure our kids can read accurately before moving to fluency, understanding that fluency is a bridge to comprehension. We are now looking at monitoring their progress in fluency.
Then we move on to paired reading. Buddies are chosen by the teacher. A more capable student is paired with someone who may struggle. Students always have the same buddy and sit in the same place. This ensures that they know what is expected of them. They're not totally different levels, just enough that if they struggle, their buddy can help with words. We've found that the kids really enjoy working with their buddies and that they feel safe and happy to read aloud. If we see that a buddy isn't working, we change it. If a buddy is away, they join in with another group. We've invested time into teaching this routine so it runs smoothly.
Now that we've assessed with Dibbles a couple of times, we felt more confident in looking closely at the data to inform our decisions for the classroom. We are careful when selecting text. We want the text to include our specific vocabulary and knowledge that we are wanting them to gain. We use a range of different resources. AI has been a huge benefit this year, and we use ChatGPT and Diffit. Diffit has been really helpful as we've been able to create the text and also add in comprehension questions to help solidify their knowledge and understanding. Our intervention group is seen every day after a whole class reading with a focus on code and decodables. This group will be following the scope and sequence that they need. During this time, the rest of the class are doing independent activities related to the whole class text, just to help further extend their comprehension. But this intervention group is being seen every single day.
And I think it's probably important to note there as well that they will get some code rules, and then when they are with the whole class, they will repeat that rule so that they are able to reinforce but have that front load.
So handwriting, we have put a huge emphasis on whole class handwriting after morning tea. Originally, we did the typical SSR here. However, we found we couldn't actually monitor who was reading or how they were reading. So we changed to whole class handwriting instruction. We have found this has transferred into their writing, and the letter formation is becoming more automatic in their writing. Here is just an example from the beginning of the year in term 1 to the end of the year now, or that was my example from last year, term 3. It's huge.
So for those of you who are currently picturing your own class, and we know we all have those kids that still just really struggle. We've talked about the intervention group, but there are those that despite explicit instruction are slower to progress. So last year I had a little boy in my class, and in fact I have a little girl this year in my class who are still very much reading CBC words. They are still part of the whole class discussion. They work on the vocab at an oral level, and during a whole class read still follow along with the text. During buddy reading, they are either with me or a teacher aide, or sometimes a really capable buddy. Here they read their decodable text, still following the same fluency structure as the rest of the class. And they really enjoy it and the challenge of trying to read more fluently each time. We also know we have those students who are sitting above or well above. For these students, they're still part of the classroom discussion in reading and building their knowledge. The texts are often complex, and although they can read these, lots of the technical terms or vocab are still new learning. We've found that they're motivated to often independently go and research more or extend their understanding. They will often ask to create presentations or share their knowledge. They love doing this with their peers, and the class love extending their own understandings. I've found that once a child is busy researching or creating a poster, then others will ask to do this. I don't think I've ever had so many information posters, Google Slides, or Kahoots to share and put up around the classroom. What's actually really cool is watching the other children then take time to read these and comment on them. All children have been exposed to the same language and concepts, so are able to access these far more than they would have been able to had they not been part of the whole class discussion. Everyone gets everything. This picture may not look like a lot, but for one of my children, this was huge. This was the first time they'd been able to do a reading task where they were the expert. They independently chose the activity and the group, and he loved literacy time. This was huge, as school had not always been very successful. The conversations for parents during parent-teacher interviews were awesome last year and before school this year, in fact. All have mentioned how much their children are sharing about the topics they're learning. I think as a teacher, it's always nice to know that kids aren't just shrugging their shoulders when they asked, what did you do today? We knew and we know we have the kids engaged and excited about learning.
So on the left is my beginning of the year word check data. There were a lot of areas that needed work, and it's still ongoing. However, through explicit whole class teaching of the code, you can see a clear visual of the progress over 2 terms. We are seeing this come through in their writing. This helps us to know what areas need review, as well as which of the code the whole class focus need to be on. So this here is from our PAT results from our class last year. Anything that is in white is progress. Anything that is in green is accelerated progress. And twice the expected progress is in yellow. And this was from reading comprehension. You can also see here, this is reading vocabulary. So again, the white is progress, green accelerated progress, and twice the expected progress is in yellow. All my intervention children are showing in green and yellow for both comprehension and vocabulary. So the expected scale score increase is 7. My class was 13.1, and that's for comprehension. And for vocabulary, the expected scale score increase is 8.5. And for my class, this was 11.9.
Similar picture for my class in PAT comprehension as well. So all of my intervention children are showing in the green or the yellow. Those that are coming up in red were still, a couple were already achieving pretty well. Others, a couple of attendance things to change that data, I guess. Then in vocabulary, the same here. All intervention children are showing in the green and the yellow. Yellow is twice the expected acceleration. And for expected scale score was 7, my class was showing at 12.6. And for vocabulary, expected scale score was 8.5, and my class were 11. These are just some of the outcomes that we've observed. So reduced inequity. All of our kids are engaged and participate in our discussions. We're involved in the collective learning in the classroom, increased use of the vocab. In the past, our struggling learners never got to read the texts at that level. The well-being, kids no longer see themselves in the lowest group because there is no lowest group.
We also found that we were able to maximize our teaching time through more effective curriculum integration. We had multiple opportunities to hear every child read every single day. As you can see on this table, in 2022, every student was getting about 15 minutes per day, 1 hour of reading per week. Now each student is getting around 1 hour of reading per day, therefore getting 5 hours of solid reading per week. This has been a huge game changer for us. We also felt that we had improved our teacher practice. We used data more effectively, less time organizing those independent activities. Teaching is more explicit, which reduces cognitive load and gives them more chance to be successful.
This year, we've had a mix of collaborative and own class teaching. This allows us to make the most of planning and teaching together for whole class and gives us the opportunity to run both intervention groups for pre-teaching, targeted teaching and things. Our whole class teaching often has one doing the teaching whilst the other is roving, redirecting and supporting. But where it's appropriate, things like handwriting we'll do in our own spaces so that we are able to explicitly teach and monitor those children for that.
It was really important for us to set up classroom routines and expectations quickly. What we loved was in week 1, term 1, we were able just to jump straight in and read right from day 1. It was awesome. And everyone was getting the same stuff. There was no bottom group. Everyone gets everything. And the kids who need more, they get it. We also found maximizing our teaching time. So no time for being off task for the kids or mucking around over in the corner. We had high expectations for being organized, focused, and ready to interact. We are lucky to have a learning assistant in our classroom, and we've supported our learning assistant with training and information that they need to help work with the students at the intervention level as well. So as you can see here, we have got some goals for 2024. We are constantly learning. We are constantly wanting to make improvements in our teaching practice and for the children as well. We know now that we're doing more review for 2024. We're introducing more vocab constantly. We find that we're actually getting around to 1.5 to 2 hours of literacy time per day, which is amazing. We have goals for this year, and that is definitely we'd like to integrate writing more into our whole class teaching and through reading. We want to accelerate our targeted students, and we want to keep providing opportunities for everyone to learn knowledge, integrate, interact, and share to extend more able students.
Fantastic. Thanks, ladies. You can breathe now. It's amazing. What you've shared with us today has been quite comprehensive, and I just want to reiterate to people watching that I am going to put together a list of resources that you use. I've got a couple of questions that I just want to throw at you, and we have sort of done a little bit of preparation, so shouldn't feel too worried about this. But a couple of things I know you mentioned to me a while ago, that you felt that you were using your DIBELS data more effectively, and that one of the decisions that you made really early on, I love that you started teaching straight away, was that you felt that there needed to be more of a focus on accuracy. So can you tell me a little bit about that, what you saw from that data and how you went about implementing that in your whole class reading and then paired fluency buddy reading with an accuracy focus?
I love that Nicole just looks at me. Thanks, Nicole.
Okay.
I think what we were noticing is that the kids, some of them were racing along and not actually like picking up the first letter and just guessing or making a thing to at the word and not focusing or thinking about what they are reading or accurately looking at those words. And so going back to actually showing them the importance of being able to understand what you're reading and knowing that it is accurate before we can even get to how quickly you read. I think sometimes with the DIBELS, especially the first time that the kids are doing it, they get a little bit worried that they've got a minute and they want to read as far as they can. And actually going back to looking at accuracy being so important before we even get to how quickly we can read that. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that's, yeah.
Awesome. Got another question here. I asked you a little while ago a little bit about sort of behavior or engagement and that kind of thing, and you were very quick to say, I think, Nicole, the words you used were there's no opportunity to muck about. So can you talk a little bit about that?
They don't have time. We are so systematic. We are so routined. Everyone is there. They're learning at the same time. They need to be interacting, engaging constantly, whether it be with a little mini whiteboard and showing us what they know, whether it be sharing with the buddy, and they just don't have time. They simply don't have time to muck about because we are go, 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 and we are just getting them constantly using that brain.
Fantastic. And tell me about the working together in your shared space, because I know that you've made very deliberate decisions about when to collaborate and when not to. When you are working collaboratively, you've got both classes together, tell me what maybe one of you is doing and what the other one is doing.
Okay. So when we're working together in a whole class situation like that, there will be one teacher who is leading that instruction, that explicit teaching and the instructions. The other teacher is roaming about the classroom and just looking at what, the back of the class are doing or what children are doing. Between both of us, we'll look up and, the aisle of just check that whiteboard or have you noticed this person? And I think the benefit of having both of us there is afterwards you'll say, oh, did you notice that this person was writing this? Or every time they go to look an answer, they're checking their buddy, or just so we're having lots of that conversation. I think when you've got both of you, you can obviously notice a little bit more. And also, like even the kids that at the beginning weren't putting much on their whiteboards, and then, we can both share that success of, hey, did you notice that this person got all of the vocab words this week? Or
and even for us to be able to say to the kids, oh my gosh, look what you've just done.
Yeah.
You have just done that and you wouldn't have been able to do that, which is awesome. It's really, really nice to see. And
to be able to both share in that.
I think so, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. Some people who are thinking about moving away from maybe seeing multiple groups a day and trying to maximize their contact or teaching time might ask something along the lines of, but how do you know how well your kids are doing if you're not seeing them for a 15-minute group every day? And I mean, I think realistically we know that didn't often happen how we wanted it, how we'd planned it to anyway. But tell me about how you are keeping in touch with what your students are doing, And I'm talking about the students that the kind of in the middle, maybe not the high flyers who you're aware of and not the strugglers, but all the kids that sort of sit there or thereabouts. How are you keeping in touch with what they're doing and how well they're doing?
We are hearing them read every day. They
Right.
get sent off to read with their buddies. I mean, they're reading with us as well. After we read, they follow along and things like that. Then they go and read with their buddies. We are roving. We're going around helping if we need to. We're going around and checking in with those students that we think, oh, they might just be a little bit on the cusp. I'm not sure where they're sitting. We're actually able to do that. And I think they've got all that vocab, that knowledge, and they can actually, that fluency is built up during that time, isn't it? And we can actually see that happening.
I think also it's lots of the incidental conversations. Sometimes it's just you're talking with a kid and something pops up with something that you've taught previous, or like you introduce a new thing and you watch this little light bulb go off on a kid and they're like, hey, wait, we've done something about that. I know what that is. And they're making those links. And by picking up on those things and seeing them link their knowledge without us having to say anything, we can go, well, yeah, we taught that. And I know that you've got that because you've just linked it into something else.
Yeah.
You know.
Brilliant. Hey, look, I think we can pretty much leave it there. I think it's appropriate to kind of circle back to Anita Archer. You started with her at the beginning. And another thing that she says is, there's something in there for everyone. And I think with today's recording, there is definitely something in there for everyone. I know you just see yourselves as being 2 Year 4 teachers teaching at a standard New Zealand primary school out west, and you are, but you also have taken a few risks to try a few things, and I just want to, notice that really and just say well done, because I know that you both sort of started out going, what is going on? The school's kind of shifting and we need to get on board. But I've really enjoyed working with you. You've been very open and really receptive to trying things out. I love how much you talk about how much you talk with each other about what are we going to do next week and how did that go and how didn't that go and what about this child and what about that child. You've talked a lot about the parents coming in, and I know that any parent could come in and could talk to you about their child, and you couldn't talk to them about their child, where they're up to and what they're doing. So well done on really continuing to do the best for your students, and thank you so much for sharing today. We may well check in with you at a later date, and we may well see you again in another sharing best practice.
Awesome.
So thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon.
All right, thanks, Adrian.
Okay, see you later. Bye.